17 for Cruz and 27 for Rubio. Just dominant in all across the lower end of the ideological spectrum.
Charlie Hurt also in Washington, D.C., you look at these exit polls, and it is also dominant that you see these states, the people coming out of the polling booth saying 7 in 10, they want an outsider. 6 in 10, they want an outsider, state after state.
And that really is the secret to, I think, Donald Trump's entire campaign from the beginning, and why he's been forgiven for a lot of the things that he said that are in politics and that have shocked people and that has caused the media to kind of go crazy, thinking that it was the end of his campaign. He's just the guy on the outside, and people believe, and the attacks on him for not really being a conservative, none of that stuff has mattered to voters, because what voters care about is they think that this guy is going to come in from the outside and shake Washington up, and they're desperate for that. They've been desperate for that for going back numerous elections, and Republicans have won over and over again on that kind of message, and it's never come to fruition. And so now you have this guy who's come in from outside the party, obviously, and is promising to do it, and voters really do believe that he's the guy. He's the one that's going to do this stuff.
Juan, we've seen this over and over in these races where if you decided early, you went for Donald Trump on the Republican side. And once you are dug in on Donald Trump, you're dug in, period. You don't switch. The late deciders breaking in Virginia in particular for Marco Rubio tonight, and we can see that by a significant margin over Trump, 37-17. It's almost as if Rubio needs a longer runway for his campaign, but that's not the way the calendar is necessarily set up. I mean, it doesn't end tonight necessarily, but, Florida's a week away.
Yeah, and I think, the Republican Party, given what had happened back in 12 and even in 08, we decided they wanted this structure with Super Tuesday helping to settle the leading candidate for the nomination early so that you wouldn't have a lot of infighting among people in the party. Well, this is played off to the benefit of Donald Trump because he had that early momentum. He's been the dominant alpha male in terms of the campaigning, and I think people went for him, picking up on the idea that he's the voice of discontent, anger with Washington.
And they voted for Donald Trump, just as they have in all the contests so far. Trump got 49% of those changed voters. You can see Cruz far behind at 21. Rubio is at 17. Anger at the federal government, another big central tenet of Donald Trump's campaign. His connection with voters is clear on this one. He won them big time. About half of Georgia Republicans say that is me. That is what I want. I'm angry at the federal government, and they voted for the New York billionaire. He got 43% of that vote. Cruz is far behind, and Rubio is farther behind at 16%. So in Georgia, it was an important thing going in to test their durability. When you look at Cruz and Rubio here for just a second, how close could they be to Donald Trump in these measures? They are not close, and that is telling us something in Georgia where it was expected to possibly be closer. About half of Georgia Republicans think that illegal immigrants should be deported back to the country that they came from. Those voters went for Donald Trump. No big surprise there. He nearly doubled the percentage who went for Cruz in second place. And finally, this. Trump won despite the fact that almost half of Georgia Republicans say that they will not be satisfied if he is the nominee. Among Cruz and Rubio voters, about 3 out of 4 said they will not be happy with Trump as nominee, but they're in the minority. This is what we couldn't say earlier on tonight before we called the race. We wanted to put that number in context for you before we had a winner, and now we can. So you can see that while significant, it did not matter because Trump was the clear winner in Georgia tonight. More races to close and more information to...
His home state, Vermont. Was it a letdown? I'm not sure.
Check marks. I mean, that's exciting. Check marks are exciting.
Okay. Well, wait, it's only 7-19. A lot of states to go through.
There's time. There's time.
That is tremendous progress. I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, it's no billboard, but then again, what is?
Bill Hammer's here.
Right on. In Virginia, we show you what's going on right now. Why it is too close to call between Donald Trump and Marco Rubio. Frankly, not enough of the vote in right now. Trump will be in purple. Rubio will be in green in the state throughout the night, and we'll see which way it goes. Couple counties starting to fill in here, and they are purple. That's Chesterfield. All right, so you got Trump an early lead, 36-33 over Rubio. What does that mean? Doesn't mean very much right now, but we'll watch how these colors fill in.
Math, incidentally.
So
Don't ever question the decision.
exactly,
Max, right?
exactly. But we've got 27 votes in, so I just wanted to be on the record. What we were talking earlier about what happens in states like Georgia that have a high threshold. You got to get 20% of the vote, or you don't get counted. There are 34 delegates statewide. Let's say that we got three candidates, A, B, and C. A gets 40%, B gets 25%, C gets 19%, and then we got all the others. If you don't get 20%, you don't get.
So the candidate that gets 19% of the vote gets 0% of the delegates.
That's right. And the person who gets 40% gets 21 of 34, and the second one who gets 25% of the total votes gets 13 of 34.
Okay, now you got congressional districts, and
in
there are
Georgia-
42 delegates there.
Yeah, and in Georgia, what happens is the person assuming that you get more than 20% of the vote, the first guy gets 2 delegates. The guy who gets the second above 20% gets 1, and nobody else.
So again, the third person who could get 24% under your map there,
So
he gets 0 delegates.
0 delegates. So you get 40% of the vote in Georgia. You could walk away with 63% of the delegates.
Okay, if that is a little bit complicated, but I'm gonna say I did get that this time. You got a much simpler number for us, Joe. 42. Explain that.
$42 million. That's what Sanders has raised in the month of February. He raised $7 million yesterday, which was more money than he raised the
63% of the delegates, or could get. And the Democrats, it's pure proportionality. They don't have the kickers, the additives, the accelerants that we have in the Republican structure in some of these states.
Let me ask you about Ted Cruz, because I will tell you, his camp feels very strongly for all this talk.
It's Alabama and Tennessee, and we're going to win these states, and they're going to have to demonstrate some strength in these SEC states.
Is this supposed to be his best night of the campaign?
That's what this was going to be the night that broke the back of the opposition and set him on the way to the nomination. And instead, it's the night he's desperately trying to stay alive. There's a reason why he was campaigning in Texas, barnstorming Texas, because he was afraid of losing his home state to Donald Trump.
Yeah, never a good sign when you spend all of the day before the primaries in Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas, your home state, and you're not other places.
Right.
Thank you. It is good to be home. You know, I have been all over this country. You know, we want to win in every part of the country. That goes without saying. But it does. Thank you so much. This campaign, as I think all of you know, this campaign is not just about it is about recognizing in Vermont, billionaires do not buy town meetings.
Bernie Sanders in Vermont, a state that he won, a state he calls home. The question is, what state will he win tonight besides Vermont? The campaign saying they are going on all the way to the convention.
They're thinking about that $42 million Joe Trippi was telling us about. And over on the GOP side, about 90 minutes from now, polls will close in Texas, where Senator Ted Cruz hopes to pull off a win in his home state. 155 delegates up for grabs on the Republican side there. I want to bring in syndicated radio talk show host and columnist for The Blaze TV and host of Dana Lash. Dana, great to see you. So Ted Cruz has said that this is the most important night of his campaign. Everyone says he has to win Texas. He seems well positioned to do that, but you know what we're going to hear from Donald Trump after tonight, which is not good enough.
Exactly. I think that you're onto something there too, Megan. And
I could say. However, even just this week, we've seen a couple of evangelical leaders come forward to say, hold on, evangelicals.
yeah, and Max Lucado has been one of those. Megan, I think you hit on something that goes so far beyond. Very angry, but I hope that people, instead of voting for revenge, are voting for country, and they're keeping country in mind, because when people say to burn it all down, well, you have to realize that we're going to be caught in those flames too. With the evangelicals, I'm surprised, and I think that's going to have to be a bigger conversation within the churches, within the communities, to address what's going on there.
What do you think? I mean, could you, as somebody who supports Ted Cruz and is yourself a conservative, could you get behind Donald Trump? Could you get behind Marco Rubio? How do you decide on something like the Second Amendment? Because all of these guys want us to believe that they're big on the Second Amendment, which has been an issue that's been discussed a lot, at least out on the campaign trail this go around. And this is a big issue for you. You've literally written a book on Second Amendment rights. So how do you decide?
Yes, hands off my gun. Well, I look at the person who's been most consistent, not just the most consistent conservative, but I look at people who have been very consistent on gun rights. And I have to say, for me, that answer personally, and I speak for myself on this, for me it was Ted Cruz, who had been very consistent on Second Amendment rights, because that provides the teeth to all of our other natural rights. And we're going to have a Supreme Court case on this coming up in the foreseeable future, where it concerns semi-automatic rifles. And so it was a huge issue for me, and that is one of the issues that I think is a deal breaker for me.
Same question to you on abortion, because you've been outspoken about Planned Parenthood and the issue of abortion.
Right. Well, pro-life, I mean, the Declaration of Independence, you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can't enjoy any other natural right without the right to simply exist. And for me, the two candidates who have been consistent on that, and the top three, have been Cruz and Rubio. Trump is still defending the funding of
Exit polls and early returns. What does that mean for Marco Rubio and Donald Trump? Back to Chris Wallace and the Campaign Cowboys. Chris?
So, Carl, tell me, what does that mean for Marco Rubio and Donald Trump?
Well, first of all, remember, this state splits its delegates on a clearly proportional basis. You get all 49 delegates are split proportionally. Right now, the delegates are split 15 for Trump, 12 for Rubio, and 5 for Cruz, given the current numbers. But I think it's probably going to tighten some, because we still have 214 precincts out of 243 in Fairfax in Northern Virginia that Rubio's getting 40% of the vote. 38 out of 53 in Arlington, again, Northern Virginia, with 58. 77 precincts out of 92 in Prince William, also Northern Virginia. He's getting 36.
This is when I told you to keep it simple.
Exactly. Anyway, bottom line is there are a lot of precincts out. This is likely to narrow. I wouldn't be surprised if we
So
didn't.
does Rubio get any brownie points? Does he get any push from coming close here, or is a loss a loss?
A loss is a loss, but they're going to try and spin it, and the number of delegates is probably going to end up being maybe 14-13 in Virginia, given the way that they split the vote up. And they're certainly going to take one little bit of cosmic justice. In Lynchburg, the home of Jerry Falwell Jr., who endorsed Donald Trump, Marco Rubio is running first, Ted Cruz second, and Donald Trump is currently running third.
So the power of that endorsement seems...
At least on the hometown turf. And Jerry Falwell was a really good guy, but that is a little bit of an odd result.
You were saying earlier, when Virginia was in doubt, Joe, that it wouldn't be